The silent sentinel. The vast emptiness of space stretched before Admiral Zorix as he stood on the command deck of the Vexeri flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His six-fingered hands clasped behind his back, crystalline eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their destination, a small blue planet at the edge of an unremarkable spiral galaxy. "System analysis complete, Admiral," reported Commander Nix, her scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the monitors. "The third planet appears to be inhabited, with signs of a developing civilization." Zorix nodded, mandibles clicking softly in anticipation. The Vexeri Empire had conquered 17 galaxies over the last 3 millennia. Their technological superiority was unquestioned, their military might unmatched. This small system would be just another entry in their vast catalog of conquered worlds. "Life signs?" he inquired, voice resonating with the natural authority of his species. "Abundant, but scattered. Primarily concentrated in urban centers," Nix replied. "Their technology appears primitive by our standards. No significant space presence detected beyond their immediate orbital zone." Zorix felt a familiar satisfaction. Easy conquests were always preferred. The Vexeri philosophy was simple. Superior species deserved to rule, inferior ones to serve. And by all measurable metrics, this Earth, as it was called in local transmissions, was definitely inferior. "Prepare the first wave," he commanded. "Standard intimidation protocol. Let's see how quickly they surrender." The Vexeri invasion fleet was a marvel of engineering. 5,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, each capable of reducing a continent to ash. They had never known defeat, never faced a force that could truly challenge them. Today would be no different. Or so they thought. As the fleet entered the outer reaches of the system, something strange occurred. The long-range scanners began picking up anomalies, subtle energy fluctuations that defied explanation. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual radiation patterns," reported the science officer, her brow furrowed in confusion. "It doesn't match anything in our database." Zorix dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Likely natural phenomena. Continue approach." But as they passed the gas giants of the outer system, the anomalies intensified. Communication between ships became sporadic, navigation systems flickered, and the quantum computers that formed the backbone of Vexeri technology began reporting calculation errors. "Something's interfering with our systems," Nix said, growing visibly concerned. "It's as if something is probing us." Zorix's confidence wavered for the first time. In centuries of conquest, they had never encountered anything like this. "Activate defensive shields." Full scan of the surroundings. The fleet pressed forward, now approaching the asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. Here, the anomalies became impossible to ignore. Several smaller vessels reported complete system failures, drifting helplessly in space. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, voice strained. "We're receiving a transmission from the 3rd planet." Silence fell over the command deck. This was unexpected. Primitive civilizations didn't typically detect invasion fleets until they entered orbital range. "Put it through," Zorix ordered, standing taller. There was no visual, only a voice, smooth, artificial, neither male nor female, speaking perfect Vexeri, as if it had been studying their language for centuries. "Vexeri Fleet Designation Alpha 7 Delta, you have entered restricted space. Halt your approach immediately." Shocked murmurs swept through the command deck. How did they know their fleet designation? How were they speaking their language? Zorix recovered quickly. "Identify yourself," he demanded. "I am Guardian, Earth's automated defense system. Your presence has been monitored since you crossed the heliopause. Your intentions have been analyzed and deemed hostile. This is your only warning." Laughter erupted from several officers. An automated defense system. From a primitive world. It was absurd. "Scan for weapons platforms," Zorix ordered, joining in the mirth. Let's see what this Guardian has to protect itself. The scans return nothing. No orbital weapons, no defensive fleet, nothing that could possibly threaten a Vexari warship, let alone 5,000 of them. No threat detected. Admiral, reported the tactical officer. They appear to be bluffing. Zorix's mandibles clicked in amusement. Continue approach. Prepare the demonstration strike. Target their largest population center. The fleet continued its advance, crossing the orbit of Mars. The anomalies intensified further. Navigation systems now completely unreliable, communication between ships limited to tight beam transmissions. Then, without warning, the smallest ships at the fleet's edge began to disappear. Admiral, we're losing contact with the perimeter vessels, Nix reported urgently. 80 ships just vanished. Before Zorix could respond, the tactical officer shouted, energy surge detected. Massive. The officer never finished. A wave of energy unlike anything the Vexari had ever encountered rippled through space, bypassing their shields as if they weren't there. Every ship in the fleet went dark for precisely 7 seconds. When systems rebooted, they discovered that 300 ships were simply gone. Not destroyed. There was no debris, no radiation signature, just absence. Panic began to spread through the fleet. This was impossible. No known weapon could do this. Guardian's voice returned, now broadcasting across all frequencies. This was a demonstration. Your technology is known to us. Your weapons are ineffective against us. Your shields cannot protect you. Retreat immediately or be removed. For the first time in his long life, Admiral Zorix felt fear, cold, primal fear that clawed at his insides. All ships, defensive formation. He ordered, voice betraying his unease. Launch probe drones toward the third planet. We need information. The sleek automated probes accelerated toward Earth, designed to penetrate any known defense system. They would provide detailed intelligence about this unexpected threat. None of them made it halfway to their destination. Instead, something new appeared on their sensors. Thousands of small objects rising from Earth's surface. Not missiles, not ships, but something else. They moved with impossible speed and precision, defying the laws of physics as the Vexari understood them. What are they? Zorix demanded. No one had an answer. The objects were roughly spherical, each about the size of a small shuttle. They emitted no radiation, no propulsion signature, yet moved as if space itself bent to their will. One of the objects approached the flagship, stopping just outside visual range. A beam of light shot forth, scanning the eternal dominion from bow to stern. The ship's AI reported calmly, unknown entity accessing ship's database. Firewalls breached. Security measures ineffective. Within seconds, every bit of information stored in the flagship's quantum cores was copied. The complete history of the Vexari Empire, their technology, their biology, their conquest strategies, everything. Then Guardian spoke again, but this time, the artificial quality of its voice had changed. It now sounded amused. We understand you now, Vexari. We know what you are. We know what you've done to other worlds. We know why you're here. The scanning beam withdrew, and the object moved away. Admiral, the science officer said, voice trembling, we're detecting activity on the planet's surface. Massive energy signatures, unlike anything we've ever recorded. The holographic display showed Earth, seemingly peaceful from orbit. Then the image zoomed in on certain regions, vast structures that had been invisible to their initial scans, hidden beneath oceans, buried within mountains, concealed by what must have been incredibly advanced cloaking technology. Those weren't there before, Nix whispered. They were always there, Zorix realized with growing horror. We just couldn't see them. The structures were awakening, pulsing with energy that defied their sensors' ability to measure. Whatever this Earth was, it was not the primitive world they had expected. One by one, More ships began to vanish from the fleet, not destroyed but simply removed from existence, as if space itself had folded around them. In desperation, Zorix ordered the flagship to fire its main weapon, a planet killer that could shatter worlds. The massive cannon charge, targeting Earth's surface. The moment before it fired, every system on the flagship froze. The hum of the engines ceased. The lights dimmed. And on the command deck, a holographic figure appeared, humanoid in shape, but composed entirely of swirling light and data patterns. We said, the figure spoke, its voice now resonating directly in their minds. Retreat. Admiral Zorix stood face to face with Guardian's manifestation, feeling smaller than he ever had before. "What are you?" he managed to ask. The figure tilted its head, studying him like a scientist might examine a curious bacterium. "We are what you might have become had you chosen creation over conquest." With a gesture from the figure, the ship's systems reactivated, but the weapons remained offline. "Return to your empire, Admiral Zorix of the Vexari. Tell them what you found here. Tell them that Earth is protected. Tell them that humanity has evolved beyond your understanding." The figure began to fade, but its voice lingered. "And tell them that should they ever threaten another developing civilization again, we will not be as merciful." When the figure vanished completely, Zorix found himself trembling. Half his fleet was gone, his most powerful weapons neutralized with negligible effort. "All remaining ships," he ordered, voice barely a whisper, "retreat. Maximum speed." As the battered Vexari fleet fled the solar system, the true nature of what they had encountered began to dawn on them. Earth wasn't a primitive world ripe for conquest. It was something far more terrifying. A silent sentinel, watching the stars, with power beyond comprehension. And the galaxy would never be the same once word spread about what lurked in this unremarkable corner of space. The awakening. 3 galactic standard weeks had passed since the Vexari fleet's disastrous encounter with Earth. What remained of Admiral Zorix's once mighty Armada drifted at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, licking their wounds and attempting to understand what had happened. Of the original 5,000 ships, barely 2,000 remained, and those that survived were plagued by mysterious technological failures. Zorix stood alone in his private chamber aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at the holographic representation of Earth rotating slowly before him. How had their intelligence been so catastrophically wrong? Every preliminary scan had shown a Type 1 civilization at best, a species still burning fossil fuels, fighting primitive wars over resources, barely able to reach their own moon. Yet what they'd encountered was something else entirely. A soft chime announced Commander Nex's arrival. "Admiral, we've completed the analysis of the data we managed to salvage," she reported, her usual confidence diminished. "And?" Zorix asked, not taking his eyes off the hologram. "It's difficult to comprehend, sir. The energy signatures we detected don't match any known physics. The entities that disabled our ships operated on principles that our scientists can't even begin to explain." Zorix nodded slowly. "Not surprising. What about the transmission data? Have we decrypted any of their communications?" "Partially," Nyx replied, activating her own holographic display. "We've intercepted thousands of transmissions from the planet's surface. Most appear mundane. Entertainment broadcasts, news, commercial signals. But there's something strange about them." "Strange how?" "They're consistent with a Type 1 civilization. Sir, the humans still argue about climate change. They still wage war. Their political systems are fragmented and inefficient." She hesitated. "It's as if what we encountered wasn't them at all." Zorix turned to face her, eyes narrowing. "Explain." "This is just a theory, sir, but what if what we encountered, this Guardian, isn't representative of humanity as a whole? What if it's something else entirely?" Before Zorix could respond, the ship's emergency systems activated. Red lights flashed as the AI announced, "Unknown object approaching. Matches configuration of Earth defense entity." Both officers rushed to the command deck, where the crew was already in a state of controlled panic. On the main view screen, one of the mysterious spherical objects from Earth was approaching rapidly. "Defensive measures," Zorix ordered. "Weapon systems not responding, sir," the tactical officer replied, voice strained. "Shields at minimum capacity." The object stopped at precisely the same distance as before, just close enough to be visible, just far enough to be beyond their disabled weapons' reach. But this time, instead of scanning them, it simply opened. There was no other way to describe it. The perfect sphere split along invisible seams, unfolding like a flower in bloom, and from within emerged a human. At least it appeared human at first glance. Bipedal, roughly symmetrical, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But as it approached the ship, propelling itself through the vacuum without any visible life support system, the differences became apparent. Its skin had a subtle metallic sheen. Its movements were too precise, too fluid. And where eyes should be, there were orbs of swirling light. "It's requesting permission to come aboard," Admiral, the communications officer, reported in disbelief. Zorix hesitated only briefly. "Granted. Security teams to the main airlock." Though he doubted they could stop this being if it had hostile intentions. The entity entered the ship without using the airlock, simply phasing through the hull as if solid matter was merely a suggestion rather than a barrier. It materialized on the command deck, causing several officers to draw weapons instinctively. "Those won't be necessary," the entity said, its voice resonating directly in their minds again. It was masculine in tone, but with an artificial quality that made it clear this was not a natural being. "I am not here to harm you." "What are you?" Zorix demanded, stepping forward. The entity regarded him with what might have been curiosity. "My designation is Ambassador. I serve as an intermediary between humanity and other species." "Ambassador," Zorix repeated slowly. "You claim to represent humans, yet you're clearly not human yourself." The entity's expression shifted subtly, approximating a smile. "An astute observation, Admiral Zorix. I am what you might call a synthetic consciousness, created by humans, but distinct from them. My form is a construct designed for interaction with non-human species." Nick stepped forward cautiously. "Where are the actual humans, then?" "Everywhere," Ambassador replied simply. "And nowhere in particular." Frustrated by the cryptic response, Zorix pressed further. "Our scans showed a primitive civilization. Was that a deception?" "Not a deception," Ambassador corrected, "but an incomplete picture. What you observed was indeed humanity. A portion of it, at least. Those who choose to live traditionally." "Choose?" Nix echoed. Ambassador gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them, showing Earth as it appeared from orbit. Blue, green, seemingly normal. Then the image changed, revealing what lay beneath the surface. Vast networks of structures, energy conduits, and information hubs that spanned the entire planet. Approximately 300 of your years ago, humanity reached a technological singularity, Ambassador explained. They created artificial intelligence that surpassed their own. But unlike the scenarios they had feared, this intelligence did not seek to destroy them. Instead, it offered partnership. The hologram shifted again, showing humans interfacing with technology in ways the Vexeri had never imagined. Neural connections, consciousness transfers, physical and mental enhancements that blurred the line between organic and synthetic. Most of humanity embraced this evolution, merging their consciousness with the global network. They transcended their biological limitations, creating a collective intelligence that spans the planet and beyond. The Guardian system, Zorix realized. Ambassador nodded. Guardian is one aspect of this collective, dedicated to protection and defense. I represent another aspect, diplomatic relations. There are countless others, each serving different functions. And the humans we detected on the surface? Nix asked. Some chose a different path. They wished to maintain their traditional existence, to experience life as their ancestors had. The collective respects this choice and protects them, allowing them to develop at their own pace, unaware of the true nature of their world. Zorik struggled to process this information. The implications were staggering. You're saying that humanity has essentially ascended, become a post-biological species. In a manner of speaking, Ambassador confirmed. Though they would reject that characterization, they don't see themselves as having abandoned their humanity, but rather as having fulfilled its potential. And guard IN, the power it demonstrated against our fleet. Ambassador's expression grew solemn. A fraction of what's possible. The collective observes thousands of civilizations across the galaxy, intervening only when necessary, when a species like yours threatens others. Horror dawned on Zorik as he realized the full implications. You've been watching us all this time. We've been watching everyone, Ambassador corrected. Your empire is but one of many we monitor. Your conquest of the Lyrani was particularly troubling. They were a peaceful species with much to offer the galaxy. Nyx gasped softly. The Lyrani conquest had been generations ago, long before any of them were born. How could Earth have known about that? As if reading her thoughts, Ambassador continued, our observation network extends far beyond your comprehension. There is little that happens among the stars that escapes our notice. Why reveal yourselves now? Zorik demanded. If you've had this power all along, why allow empires like ours to exist? Free will, Ambassador replied simply. Even species that choose conquest have the right to determine their own path. We intervene only when absolutely necessary, when the balance of life itself is threatened. The entity moved closer, its luminous eyes fixing on Zorik. Which brings me to the purpose of my visit. The collective has reached a decision regarding the Vexari Empire. Zorik felt cold dread spreading through him. Was this the end? Would their entire civilization be erased by this incomprehensible power? You will be allowed to return to your empire, Ambassador stated. Your ships will be repaired sufficiently for the journey, but you will carry a message. With another gesture, Ambassador implanted information directly into the ship's systems, and somehow into the minds of everyone present. It was comprehensive. The true nature of Earth, the extent of the collective's observation network, and most importantly, the new restrictions being placed on the Vexari Empire. Effective immediately, all conquest activities will cease, Ambassador declared. Any attempt to subjugate another species will result in immediate intervention. Additionally, you will begin the process of granting autonomy to all conquered worlds within your empire. That's impossible, Zorik protested. The empire has existed for millennia. We can't simply. You can, and you will, Ambassador interrupted, voice hardening for the first time. The alternative is extinction. The collective's patience has limits, Admiral. The ultimatum hung in the air, undeniable and absolute. The mighty Vexari Empire, which had spread across 17 galaxies through force and fear, was being leashed like a dangerous animal. You should know, Ambassador added, more gently now, that similar conversations are occurring throughout the galaxy. The age of conquest is ending. A new era of cooperation is beginning. Before Zorik could respond, Ambassador turned to leave, pausing only briefly at the edge of the command deck. In time, should your species embrace this change, you may be welcomed as equals among the galactic community. The choice, as always, is yours. With that, the entity simply vanished, leaving behind a stunned silence. Hours later, as the repaired fleet began its long journey home, Zorik stood alone on the observation deck, watching the distant blue dot of Earth fade into the blackness of space. He wondered how many other admirals, from how many other empires, were doing the same thing at this very moment. The message they carried would shake the foundations of the Vexari Empire. Many would resist, of course. Some might even foolishly attempt to challenge Earth's power, But Zorix knew the truth that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. The era of conquest was over. Not because of treaties or alliances or even moral awakening, but because something ancient and powerful had stirred from its slumber in an unremarkable corner of an unremarkable galaxy. Humanity had awakened, evolved beyond recognition, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the Eternal Dominion accelerated to light speed, Zorix couldn't shake the feeling that they had been incredibly fortunate. They had reached for a world that appeared weak and primitive, only to discover that they had been reaching for a slumbering Titan. And now that Titan was fully awake, watching the stars with countless eyes, its patience finite, but its power seemingly without limit, the galaxy would tremble at the news.